Hey guys, it's Rush. The meta of heavy tanks has changed a ton, and because I have a few heavy tanks in my garage that I really haven't done videos on in ages, I figured today I'm going to start off with reviewing the Is7. So I'm going to go over my setup, why I run what I do, try to justify basically what I'm doing. You don't have to copy this exactly to do well in your Is7, but this is the setup I've been using, and it's basically, what is my mark? We can see what I play at. You know, I literally just 3-marked this thing, and you can see it's the setup I use. So if you're going for good results or maybe better results, you might be able to learn something from me. Let's get started. So everyone knows the Is7. I'm going to go really quickly over its stats because if you don't know what this tank does, you probably don't play World of Tanks very much. This thing has 490 alpha, 250 base pen on the gun. The accuracy in basically is not very good. If I took food off of here and Brothers in Arms off of my crew, the accuracy would be around 0.4, maybe 0.41. The view range on a tank like this, well, I'll talk about the armor later. On a tank like this, view range is a major asset. What often happens on an Is7 is if you choose to run optics, I'll show you right now. Running optics on a heavy tank can give you a huge advantage, and the Is7, contrary to popular opinion, you can actually use them because the base view range is 400 basically. So when you have high alpha, it's really important that your shot goes where you're aiming it, because if you miss a shot, there's like a 10-second penalty for missing the shot. There's 10 seconds where you can't do anything. If you're playing a 140 or something and you miss, it's 5 seconds, you shoot again, it's no issue. In an Is7, if you miss, an E5 might hit you twice in that period of time, and that would be, 800 damage. So in a tank like this, you really want your shots to go in. If they don't, it's going to cost you a lot. Because of that, what I've done is I've got a V-stab and I've got this thing right here, which is an improved rotation mechanism. Both of these seriously help the gun handling, and I could consider running a GLD or vents on the other spot. I don't, because I also have food. I don't really need it, but it's important to understand it. You don't want to be like choosing, I wouldn't say, for example, you wouldn't choose optics over some sort of gun handling a piece of equipment. Basically, it would never be justifiable. You could choose it over a rammer, but it just makes no sense. Now, as far as the armor goes on this thing, this is a heavy tank, so the main strength is going to be the armor. I'm going to cover it really quickly. Basically, a tank like this can side scrape at an angle like this if you're shooting at it and do reasonably well. A lot of tanks, if the front is covered, like let's say there's a building right here, will not be able to pen the rear. You almost have to angle it like this, and most heat shells won't even pen it like this. So in the Is7, the weak spots are going to be right here. The front of the tank, basically the lower plate, if it's angled like this, it's going to be the turret cheeks. You can specifically aim at this light. It's a really good reference point, or this one over here, and if the thing's hull down, there's absolutely no weak spots. So the Is7's main advantage is actually its side armor and the turret armor. Nothing except a Jagdpanzer E100 with heat can pen its turret armor, and the side is like so good. It just eats up heat shells basically. So really good armor on this vehicle. Of all the old heavies, it's one of the best armored because you can't really shoot heat at the side because it's spaced armor, whereas a mouse, you just shoot heat at the turret and it's super easy. So it's really well armored in the current meta. As far as the crew goes, you can see how I've set this thing up. I've got Brothers in Arms all the way down, and then for my second skill, basically prioritizing repairs and safe stowage for the loader. You do need safe stowage on Russian heavies. And then I've got repairs on the commander, jack of all trades on the commander as well. And then everything else is just personal preference, basically. I run Snapshot, Armorer, smooth riding, clutch braking, smooth ride obviously, and snapshot to help with that gun handling, which is an actual issue. So that's actually my setup. It's not very complex. Just copy it if you want. Crew setup does not matter. If you're running 4 people with BIA and then 1 person with 6th Sense, that's not going to be optimal, but it's not going to actually reduce your stats by too much. It helps maybe 5% basically. As far as ammo goes, I carry a lot of gold because, like I said, the thing has 250 AP pen. With the current meta of tier 10 games, you need to carry a lot of gold, because what will happen is you'll fight against a mouse or something and he can just like this tank will not beat most heavy tanks if they're shooting gold. So to compete, you're going to need a reasonable amount of gold shells, and you also should carry some HE. The HE, like most HE, is not good enough to shoot at arty, because lest you get 100 damage on an arty and then you have 10-second reload and it works. But it can, if you aim for an arty's weak spots, pen the weak spots of a tank with 68 pen, and you will one-shot arty if you manage to pen. So it's better than using, like, let's say a light tank with HE, because if you're using a T100 light tank and you're shooting HE at arty, it could very easily turn a 2-shot arty into a 3 or a 4-shot. So the HE is better for arty in most situations, and because of that, I carry 3, whereas on most tanks, it's going to be 1 or 2 or even 0. Like on my 907, it doesn't have the shell capacity to carry any more, like any HE at all, basically. So that's the tank from the garage perspective. Let's go take it into a game. I'll show you my 3-mark game and the game prior to it, and I'll just talk about how this thing is played. All right, now I've got 2 replays for you. Both of these are preceding my 3-mark, so it's this game and then the game after, and the game after I got my 3-mark, basically. So at this point, I was roughly at 94-ish, maybe 94.5% on the mark of excellence. Very close, but not close enough to get at this game. And we're kind of in that situation where we don't want to throw, we don't want to die, we need to have a good game. So what I have to do in an IS-7, it's really important you do this. You need to look at the enemy team, because you don't want to fight a tank you can't deal with. Now, if you remember in the armor section, I said you cannot fight Jagdpanzer E100s who are shooting heat, because all they'll do is they'll just shoot heat through your turret. And with 420 heat pen, that thing can roll as high as 530 or whatever for the heat roll. It makes no sense. And so where would a Jagdpanzer E100 go on this map? Well, if you were in a Jagdpanzer E100, I guarantee it, the average player who plays a Jagdpanzer would take it to the tank alley. So there's no way in hell, when they've got an HE spamming 183 and 2 Jagdpanzer E100s, that I'm going to take this tank to the tank alley. So the other option could have been the 1-line, also another very common Jagdpanzer E100 position. You can see one's here, one's on the tank alley. So it's like, to me, when there's 2 arty and all this enemy team comp, going to the hill's the only justifiable play. Now, I'm going to speed it up, and I'm just going to show you very quickly what speed we're going. Climbing the hill's about 20 kilometers an hour. So if you look at the timing with my teammates, you know, it's about as fast as a 277. The mediums will always get here first. You can see their 277 got here really quick, but it's not like I'm taking a 705A up the hill. You're still able to kind of get here, and then coming down, very easy for an i7 because you've got that massive top speed. Now, I'm taking this angle, so 277's there. What I didn't want to do is I didn't want to come over the crest and give him an easy shot on my lower plate. You can see all he has to do is poke on me, and he's shooting heat. He just goes right into my lower plate. Now, the brawling portion of this replay, this is how your life will be in the IS-7. So what I've done is I've come up to this corner. I've got multiple tanks behind me. I'm going to poke on the 50B, and then I'm going to fall back. And because I poked A quickly and B was using this rubble to get hull down, is pretty reasonable. Now, at this point, I see that there's a 60 TP behind us. So I looked at the map, I saw him, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find myself someone I can fight hull down right here. So 60 TP, I know for a fact, because I have experience on this map, that I can get over here, and I am able to either shoot at him while he's reloading, or B, get hull down on this angle. Now, I can probably just use my armor at this point with a 60 TP in this context. I'm just hull down right here, and that's me just hiding my lower plate. And then suddenly the E4 appears. So the E4 is going to change things because he might be shooting gold and it's going to make things kind of challenging. But I have a shot on his lower plate, so I'm going to take that. And a lot of heavy tank drivers are way too static when they play a position like this. You don't want to just sit there giving the E4 time to shoot it. You need to move around to make things difficult. Now, he fired. I know I was going to beat his reload, so I took that shot and missed. Just a shitty shot, no RNG or anything like that. Totally my fault. I've got the Leopard 1 who pokes. He's poking very well in this instance. And I have shots in the 60TP, but for me to shoot at this guy at this point would get me shot and penned by both the E4 and the 60TP. So I shoot at the safer target for myself, and this is the smarter thing to do. Even though I have 2000 HP, if both of these guys penned me, I'd lose 1500 and just wouldn't be worth it. Now, 60TP is kind of over angling. I should be able to pen his engine deck kind of from this angle, just below the turret. That one goes in 484, and you can see this thing hammers people. It just absolutely rocks them when you hit them. It's really insane. Now, 60TP gets hit by arty. I'm having gun depression issues as I drive up. If I'd been more to the left, I would have had shots, and you can see I kind of angled my tank and I could have maybe gone for the kill in the 60TP, but I'm not going to go push around. There's 2 arty in this situation and 2 tanks with 650 alpha. Well, E4's 750, 60TP, 650. It's just not a smart play. A lot smarter play on a map like this in this situation is to come and shoot at the tank alley after they've pushed through. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting shots. Jagdpanzer's not looking, IS-4's not looking. I know the 183 down here won't have the gun elevation to hit me. I'm just kind of angling my tank off of the hill like this, and that's how I get shots down on the IS-4. So I'm not doing, most people will kind of sit here. I really don't like moving to the left. How I played it is how I advise you play your tank in that situation. Now, they're on our cap and all this shit's going on. We're down multiple tanks. The idiot team lost tank alley as I brought my IS-7 to the hill. So I know I said that, but I don't think it was terrible to bring my tank to the hill, honestly. I was able to do a lot of damage up here, and against the tanks that I was fighting, which were also super heavies and actual heavy tanks, I did okay. Now, 277 fired at me. I was held down. Of course, that's going to bounce. This guy just fired, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be aggressive at this point, and I'm going to put a shot into him. He reloads in time. And this is where the Is7 can start to do well if you play it correctly. So I know the 277 spamming heat. He's been shooting heat all game. And what I should be doing here is I should be side scraping. You can see I was kind of hiding my lower plate with the 277's hull right there. And I was able to get him to miss basically. And then he rams me. So I'm able to get the kill. Now I've got this E4 in front of me. He's a one shot and I'm just going to go for the shot on his lower plate. I rolled 428 and he had 430 HP. So that was a major low roll. Now, in this context, strategically, it doesn't make sense for me to push these guys. They're going to be loaded, and I know there's an autoloader coming around behind me to flank me. So I YOL the autoloader. This is the right play, and it's going to make me live longer, basically. So I push into him. He knows it's coming. He's falling right back because they can tell. I put the shot, and then I can see on the map, if you look on the map right here, I know what's happening. They're obviously chasing after me. So I wasn't able to turn the tank. It's not the most mobile, but I'm pointing the gun around. I want to hit someone for one more shot of damage. You know, an extra shot's an extra 500 damage in this thing. So I see the 60 TP's hull down. Know I'm going to fight him. I move forwards because I was considering getting a shot on the 430 basically, and you can see I can do that right here. Artie, because both of them fired, I'm not dead to Artie just yet. I put a shot to the 430. That's the extra shot I was looking for. 60 T bounces. Oh, he's 750 alpha. 60 TP bounces, and then the E4 is able to pen me through the side. You know, probably either through the side or the upper front plate. In from his angle, both of those would have penned. So that's the first replay. You get to see how this thing brawls. I'm going to be even more aggressive in the next one. Let's go check that one out. What I want you to take away from these replays is the Is7 against heavies, especially if they're shooting heat, doesn't have a ton of armor. It has enough armor to like bounce shots occasionally. When the 60 TP wasn't aiming, he didn't pen me, for example. But the way armor works in World of Tanks is if someone's point blank and they're aiming, they will pen. What armor does is it forces the enemies to aim, and it just gives you the probability that they will miss. So if someone snapshots at you, they're probably not going to pen you, as opposed to if you were in a Leopard 1, snapshot's a lot more likely to pen you. So keeping that in mind, we're on the map Erlenberg. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be hyper aggressive, because this is my 94.5, like, this is the game that I wanted to mark the tank. So what I'm doing is I'm in a platoon with Leopard 1, same guy as last game actually, and he's going to a sniping position. Because I'm supported, I'm going to make a very aggressive play. Guess where? F4. We're taking this tank because I'm top tier. They have a shitload of mediums. We're taking this thing to F4. Now, I'll fast forward this because I've got support. You know, I check all around me. It's good. Everything's good. I've got a Leopard 1 behind me, and they have so many mediums that I'm able to basically act as a scout. Now you can see 430 bounces off of me. Why is that? Well, it's because I'm not in Leopard 1 and the armor made me lucky. It's a probability thing. What I'm going to do is, here I am. I'm kind of in a crossfire. If someone were to be here, it'd be a huge issue and I would be in a really rough situation. But the main goal from this position is actually to scout, because I want my Leopard 1 way behind me and my Artie and everything else to be able to kill their huge amass of mediums. Now, in this case, I don't know how the game is going to play out, obviously, because I know how it's going to end up here. But basically what I'm doing is, from this position, I can sit hull down behind this mound right here, and I can shoot at tanks that might appear here. Now, when they aren't an issue, what I simply do is I just back up a bit, and I can look for shots on the mediums. So that's what I'm doing right here. I don't have to worry about them really shooting my rear. In general, you would expect teammates to prevent that from happening. So we're good. Now, I'm hull down behind this, and you can see I don't really know what to do. At a certain point in time, I am looking towards the TVP. This is my third mark game, right? So this is a weird one for sure. But being aggressive like this, if you can find a position like this, it's going to win you more games than it will lose games, because you're giving your team map control and you're effectively suppressing huge portions of their team. So I'm going to fast forward this because we're not really doing anything for a bit. Basically, eventually I decide to push into the city. And this is where keeping your head on a swivel in a tank like an Is7 is really important, because what's going to happen on a map like this, if you're in an Is7, poking a corner like this is going to get you killed, right? Because your lower plate, no matter how much you angle, everyone can pen it. Even if they're not shooting gold, they're just going to pen it in the current meta. So what I do is I'm not relying on my armor here. I poke my track out, and what I'm doing is I'm waiting to see if Sixth Sense goes off. Sixth Sense doesn't go off, so I cross. I know there's no one there, and I move forwards and I find a 430. So put the shot to the 430. Once again, he bounces. Where does he hit me? well, he didn't have much time to aim, and he hits the lower section of my lower plate right there. So, you know, if you hit the lower plate at that type of angle, you're never going to go in, and that's the value of armor. He should have penned that 9 times out of 10, but because he wasn't able to, I was able to bounce it. Now, in that case, I over-angled my lower plate. Pretty reasonable to do in an Is7. He bounces off that shot, and what I'm doing is I'm looking for shots on maybe a TVP, maybe there's someone to my right I can shoot at, and then a WZ 11114 in front of me appears. So I start to drive up to look for shots, notice the 430. This guy will never win, but then there's a T57 heavy. So I'm in a crossfire right now, and I realize I've got some tanks behind me, so I don't really have to back up. What I do is I use this cover, and I'm trying to side scrape against this guy, because if he's shooting AP or heat, I want to give him as much side armor as possible. So I had my front right here, and this guy's shooting heat. I see the 430. I'm just looking for shots, trying to basically get him to miss or whatever, and he's just bouncing all of these because I'm able to just sit here and there's nothing he can do. Why he's shooting all these shots that will never go in, I have no idea, but he dumps his clip into the side of my tank. And this angle, you know, this side scraping angle works very well against the 57 heavy driver. I fall back to look for shots in the 57, and I was able to get a quick one into the 430 right there, into the commander's hatch, so it worked out well. Already fires at me. He damages both of my tracks, and then from here the question is, how aggressive can you be as a top tier heavy tank? Basically, should you push in to a 57 heavy, a WZ 11114, and whatever else they have back here? And the answer is no. So you can see I'm side scraping. Now I'm being slow about this because I want to see if my sixth sense goes off. If sixth goes off, it tells me there's someone camping me and to stop reversing, right? Because if I keep reversing, when I spot someone, they'll be able to pen me, or sooner. So they might actually be able to pen me before I actually light them. So you want to be careful about that. Now, I know I can't push down this alleyway. I kind of say it's a losing proposition. Let's not do that. So I'm looking for stuff on the 4 line. The 57 heavy, though, gets lit. He makes himself a very easy target, and I put one into him. He puts one into me, and then immediately, because I realize, hey, he's shooting heat, I start to side scrape, because side scraping does a very good job against the 57 spamming heat. Now, 57's fallen back, and I kind of expect him to poke. I see the TVPs on the map, but really I would expect the 57, the WZ, someone else is more likely to give me damage than the 57 heavy, or than the TVPs in the west. But eventually I decide, look, he's going to be loaded. There's no mistakes happening. I'm going to start to fall back, because if you look at the whole situation that's going on, it's just not smart to push into this. Now, I get a fully aimed shot into the T30. That one missed. I specifically remember that shot. I was super fucking pissed at the time. The next one will never be at the T30 when I have 500 alpha. I'd much rather shoot at the Conway anyways. And I put that shot in. It goes in. We're up to 2,200 damage. And the correct play from here is, once again, to not push into these hull-down tanks. I don't have the armor to deal with it. Now, E5 pushes in, doesn't realize I'm here. I put one into his lower plate with gold, and I'm just going to reverse. If he pens me, great. You can see he didn't pen me, and, well, where did that bounce? I have no clue. He definitely would have penned my lower plate, so he didn't hit that, and most likely it's because he snapshotted, basically. So at this point, I'm lucky to be full HP. I should be maybe a shot or two lower. But obviously, if you get lucky, it's not like it's my fault that I got lucky, right? So it happens. What I'm going to do now is I'm camping the angle, because if I was a 57 heavy, after seeing me reverse like I did, I might look for shots. And then I suddenly realized, like, shit, we're losing this game. I kind of want to do something. So the 1 line cleared out, and that gives me the opportunity to push the 5 line. Now, from here, I have never made this play before, so this is actually a first time of mine doing this. What I'm going to do is I'm trying to distract these heavies, because I don't want them to kill my teammates, and as a full HP heavy, it's kind of my job. So I come over here, 57 heavy looks at me. Well, he should eventually. He will eventually notice me. You can see I'm trying to get shots, not able to make it happen. The E5 is here as well, and you can see if I was in something like an E100, I would probably be able to ramp up that shot rate, like drive up and get that shot, but the tank's just not tall enough. Now, what I do instead is I come over here. The mobility of this tank is very, like, I'm committing to a flank. Like, I'm flanking a team with my Is7, so the mobility is good enough. Now, WZ's right here. I'm going to point out at how I approach this. I don't take the time to side scrape on this angle, because my team can't afford it. Now, I poke out, he bounces. Where does he shoot when he bounces? I'll just show you. Lower plate. He bounces off my lower plate with that one. So I put one into his lower plate. I mostly aimed it because I couldn't afford for it to be a miss. And then I notice on the map the 57 heavy is absolutely YOLOing me. So I'm going to stop on this corner, just try to get the first shot on this guy to try to beat him if I can. And he realizes. He doesn't give me the shot right here. So at this point, I'm caught out, because there's a WZ and a 57 heavy right here, and my only help in the mid died to a 430. So at this point, it's very hard to turn this game around. I put the shot into the 57 heavy, I get the track, and the reason the track was important is it might have blocked the WZ from also YOLOing me. Now, the 57 Heavy is a reasonably mobile heavy tank. It's less mobile than the 50B, but, you know, as heavies go, it's pretty mobile. So I'm slightly less mobile than him, so what I do is I fall back, and if you're in a situation like this, you basically have to play like this. I can't push the 57, even though he can't clip me out. Artie might hit me for 400. The WZ's definitely going to have come back. And there you go. Artie hits me. So suddenly, if the WZ were to shoot me, the 57 Heavy would kill me. So I see the WZ to my right. That shot, I'm never going to get the turret rotation around in time. The WZ ammo-racks me. Now the 57's there, so I'm moving to try to get myself out of a crossfire between the WZ and the 57 Heavy, and I'm more than fast enough to do this. I'm basically just running away at this point, and like just same as last game, one more shot of damage is great for my mark. So what I'm doing is I don't want to get shot at by the WZ here. I'm going to just try to side scrape against this 57 Heavy. And I'm very badly employing a technique called reverse side scraping right here. So when you're in a situation like this, the 57 Heavy has a shot on your ass and he's shooting heat. I want to give him myself the best possibility of survival. And by doing that, I can force or try to bait him into shooting the side of my tank, right? Because heat's going to do very badly against the spaced armor. So I fall back. You can see I angle myself even more, just trying to get him to shoot my side and hide my ass. He bounces off my side, like I said, and I think I angle a bit more, and he's gonna pen that one, obviously. Like you can maybe trick someone once in that situation where he's right in front of you, but there you go. So that's the game. That was actually the game I 3-marked this tank with, because it was 6,800 combined. So both of these games were actually pretty good. Unfortunately, they were both losses. It was one of my most disappointing 3-mark games ever, but yeah, that's the Is7 and multiple tactics that you can use in this tank. So the point of this video is basically to show you like relevant tactics that you can actually use in the Is7. And basically, if you watch my replays, I use so many in such a fluid manner, I think, in both of those games, that it's a really good demonstration of how to play the tank. Do I think the Is7 is worth it? Well, in the current meta, the question is more like, can you get anything that's better? And the answer is yes. Of course, there are better heavy tanks out there. For a specific purpose, though, I think the Is7 is one of the most fun heavy tanks in the game. When I look at the other Russian heavies, I really don't see one that takes its role. The Is7's very unique. It does a really good job at what it does, and you can't really get anything like it with any other tank in the game. So I think it's worth getting. I don't think it should be your first tier 10 heavy tank anymore. There's so many others like that are decent, like a Kronwagen, or, you know, basically a Kronwagen similar to an Is7 in that it can get very held down and do very well. But, you know, there's better, like a Super Conqueror seems to be a better heavy in the current meta. So I would get the Is7. If it's the Russian heavies that you're looking for, I would get an Is7 over a 277 every day of the week. The armor's just way better. When I've played the 277 on the European server, it's just not been up to par. I'd much rather be in an Is7 in most situations, and there really isn't like any other tank that I'd rather get to fill the Is7's role in my garage. So I think it's a great tank. I would suggest getting it. Maybe not your first tier 10 heavy. There's a lot other, like I said, there's just better ones out there, more interesting tanks. At some point, you know, like a 57 heavy wouldn't be a bad first heavy tank. Neither would a Super Conqueror or an E5. Those would typically be what I would suggest getting first. I would even suggest maybe getting a Kronwagen first. When I've played the Kronwagen on other accounts, I've really enjoyed it. So it's maybe like your 5th or 4th tier 10 heavy tank, but it's definitely not your last one. Like, I wouldn't suggest getting a Mouse in the current meta, for example. So it's a really good tank. I would suggest getting it. I had a lot of fun playing with it, and that's the bottom line, right? A tank like this that gives you a unique playstyle that you can do something fun with is worth getting, in my opinion. So really enjoy the tank. If you liked this video and you want to see more, be sure to hit the like and the subscribe button. I also offer mentoring, basically one-on-one lessons for World of Tanks. They're about an hour long, and I will put a link in the description to those if you want. They're kind of expensive, but like so many people ask for more that I have to limit demand with the price. So I apologize for the price. It's kind of ridiculous how quickly hours fill up, actually. I was very surprised by it. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you around. Later, guys. Bye-bye.